Hello and welcome. Today I'm making something for my wife. I'll be printing and painting this little Stitch. I got the idea to do this as I realised I had room on my build plate from the model that I wanted to print. So this way I get what I want and I get bonus points for making my wife think I did this all for her. Yeah, I'll edit that bit out. After reorientating the little figures that I want to print for my wife, I make sure that they're not too small by measuring them before I proceed to slice them ready for the printer. When I'm happy with the size that the models will come out as, it's time to press the slice button, letting the program decide the best way to do it because I'm too lazy to add them manually. I've never tried printing anything that's got red over the blue areas, so after knocking my camera over, it's time to resize the models to make sure that they're all inside the build plate. As red is generally used as a bad signal, I don't want to wait 2 hours printing to find out I've got a gooey mess. To make cleanup easier in the later stages, I always check to make sure no supports are cutting through any of the other models. I'm also not sure why I do this bit, but it looks good and I like it. As the prints come in upside down, I have made sure that the Stitch's open mouths will point downwards to make sure that they don't fill up with uncured resin. As a safety note, when printing, spilling resin on your top will make your wife angry, so remember to stay safe. Normally I would wash the completed prints whilst they were still on the build plate, but like a muppet, I put the bars too close together in the basket to hold the build plate up, and there's no way I'm going to put my fingers in there to move them. This forced me, unfortunately, to remove the prints first. I wouldn't recommend doing this, as not only the pieces go flying off everywhere, it can also cause the resin to spray everywhere as well. Knowing that I'm usually as capable as a monkey playing with a tool for the first time, I did make sure that I had a large silicone mat underneath the work area. When I'm happy the prints have been fully washed and nearly all of the loose resin on the surfaces has been washed off, I precariously balance the basket on top of the wash station to help the models drip dry. After washing, it's time to give the models a little disco to help cure the cured printed resin. Hang on, what? Well, this will cure the resin that I didn't wash off properly anyway. And like using a microwave, I turn the models around halfway through, although they are on a spinning turntable. Don't ask, I don't know why I do either. After easily putting the lid back on and finishing the final curing, I use the bendable UV lamp, aiming it at the bottom and top of the models to make sure that every visible surface has been fully cured. Now that all the curing is finished, the prints are now deemed safe to handle. All that's left to do is remove the small supports and cut off any imperfections left behind from the actual supports. It was at this point I realised that this project was for some gifts to my wife, so here are some clips of me cleaning the obviously more important models. Also, if you were wondering why I printed the models on their backs, I did this because I know they would be displayed forward facing, so I'd rather leave the imperfections on the rear of the model. The final step before painting is to drill a hole too small for my cocktail stick before using the correct drill piece, as I forgot that I changed them over earlier on in the day. This usually explains why performing simple tasks usually takes me a lot longer than I anticipate or plan for. Getting a primer base on the model as quickly as possible does make finding the imperfections a lot easier, as I spent an age sanding this little model only to find some horrifically bad bumps all over the little model which weren't visible before the primer. Luckily the most important model looked fairly perfect after the primer. This is good because I can't wait to paint it. Oh, hang on, unfortunately the most important model still had some imperfections on the back. When the resanding and repriming are finished, I use the grey Vallejo primer over the top of the Colour Forge matte black primer to start the highlighting process by spraying from above using the zenithal technique. If you are going to use an airbrush when changing the paints, always make sure the first burst of air that goes through is not pointed directly at your model. To finish the zenithal technique, I always use a white ink to highlight the very top of the models. And as I plan to spray a pink colour inside of the ears, I make sure that there is no black left inside them. If you've ever tried painting with pink, you'll understand why I'm doing this. As the paints will dry very quickly, I start mixing a light blue colour almost immediately. For this blue I used the original white ink and a Vallejo blue designed for an airbrush. In the past I have directly painted a model before purging my airbrush, so if you don't take my earlier recommendation, when it does this to you, and trust me it will, even if it hasn't done it yet, I will find it absolutely hilarious based on how angry I was when it happened to me. Yeah, that sucked. It may not look like it, but I am avoiding the inner ear with this blue. I can't remember which two paints I picked to create the pink colour, but you can pause this video and hold the bottles up next to it if you would like to copy me. This is the first time I used my new airbrush booth, so here's a nice close-up of the back of my hand. With the base coat finally done, I can admire all these small little spots that the airbrush managed to miss in painting. I will be painting these two larger models separately and very differently in future videos. Here you can also see that I left some of the black near the undersides of the models. Now it's time for the hand painting. As this stitch will be a cartoon inspired finish, all I have to do is block out the main colours and not really worry too much about precision painting. This also makes it very good if you're a beginner and want something to look good quickly. I do paint a slightly darker blue under his chin and his lower belly and very roughly blend it to fake some shadows. As the guitar will be hiding most of it, it really doesn't need to be neat. Although his nose will be black, using black is not a good idea. It's better to create a very dark grey, as pure black in miniature just doesn't look right. I also use this colour to paint in the eyes. Again, I'm not too worried if the edges aren't painted perfectly. I will however use the pure black to paint inside the nostrils as well as defining the mouth to help make it stand out a little bit more from a distance. Mixing more black into the dark grey to darken it even more helps to make his claws look a slightly different colour to his nose. Again, a nice simple easy technique is to get some burnt umber oil paint and brush it over the small guitar using a very stiff brush like this hog hair brush, and as long as you keep brushing in the same direction it makes a very simple wood grain looking surface. Sometimes my brain likes to punish me by not letting me figure out simple little problems like how to edge highlight this particular area of the guitar. The edge highlighting was done using the original brown paint for the guitar. This helps make the guitar look worn and used. As I can clearly see Stitch doesn't clip his nails, I had to paint tiny little scratches on the guitar for added realism. To finish the guitar, a dark grey was used for the small little details. When looking at the little Stitch, I didn't like the fur tufts, so I highlighted them in white. As I'm painting a miniature, a colour wheel is essential to pick out a complementary colour for the base, as his light blue and orangey red colour would go well. But if I use the triad system of complementary colours, I would have to use red and yellow is just as hard to paint as pink, so I'll have to go back to the light blue and the orangey colour, but I want to paint it red, and seeing as red is kind of next to the orangey colour, but I forgot that he has a pinky purpley sort of ear, which would mean I'd have to paint it in the impossible yellow colour, so I'll have to revert back to the reddy colour again, but then that would mean I'd have to have green for its opposite complementary colour, but his bluey light blue colour. Yep, I've decided I'm not painting the base. It's far too complicated. I'll just use some of this flocking that I have instead. If I place him on top of the little flocking, I can see if it just goes well, instead of painting the base 30 times before I pick the right colour. After carefully selecting which flocking I'm going to use, it's time to dump the PVA glue all over the base and spread it out using the cheapest oldest brush that I own. And weirdly, it looked like this brand new as well. I didn't know what paint it was used for back then, and I still don't now. The flocking material is just tiny pieces of sponge, so pressing them in with your finger lets the PVA soak through, so stop when they start sticking to your finger. To attach the guitar to Stitch, my superglue pin pen construction is used to apply the superglue at all the contact points that are hidden from view, as it will dry shiny and reflect the light. Remembering that I filled the hole for the little plug on Stitch to attach it to the base, I needed to cut it off. I could go back onto my computer to see if I ticked the hollow option for printing this little model before cutting the plug off, letting any trapped resin spill out, but I cut it before remembering I could do that. Luckily this time I forgot to tick the hollow option and printed this little figure solid. And again, I have drilled into a model that I printed hollow before to teach myself that uncured resin will squirt out. Pressing Stitch into the base will show me which flocking to remove to help some of the super glue to attach to the base and permanently stick him there. The flock will also harden as the PVA glue dries out, so the rest of the super glue will also stick to that. All that's needed now to finish this little model is to breathe a little life into it by placing bright white dots onto the eyes to fake light reflecting off them. Just make sure the upper highlight is larger than the lower highlight, and both eyes have the highlights pointing in the same direction. So with this little figure done, it's time to gift it to my wife and start thinking about what I can get when I cash in the bonus points. Thanks for watching and have fun!